Hello folks. Now, perhaps no other Rolex Submariner variant of the 7 released last year in 2020, or even no other Rolex watch currently in production, forces its audience to engage with it, commanding a strong opinion at first glance, the way the Rolex Submariner Reference 126613LN does. Love it or not, this almost notorious but prominent watch, belonging to the third pillar of the Rolex Submariner lineup, the two-tone or Rolesor, makes itself unquestionably difficult to ignore and even more difficult for its audience not to have a bold or vehement opinion about it, whether positive or negative. A watch fashioned out of 18 karat gold and steel that, on the surface, oozes pure testosterone, is the very picture of opulence, luxury, and wealth. And, if nothing else, serves as an iconic status symbol that matches or even exceeds the confidence of its wearer, may have just more to it than meets the eye. But first, let's address the several subtle but notable changes that were incorporated into the latest iteration of the Rolex Submariner. We first observed the most talked about change, the almost blasphemous increase in case size to 41mm, a first for the Rolex Submariner. The 41mm size now brings it in line with the Oyster Perpetual and the Datejust 41mm models, although all three watches wear and size completely differently. This was the move or a gamble not many saw coming. However, the tactful slimming down of the lugs presents a final product that's more proportionate, more refined, more polished, and more complete than the Submariner 6-digit reference that it succeeds. This newly proportionate size is reminiscent of the 5-digit reference Rolex Submariners. The width of the Oyster bracelet on the new reference models also increases to 21mm, up from 20mm. And that means that the clasp also gets bigger and a little wider. I think this makes the Submariner look more whole, more complete. It lends deft heft to the watch that completes this piece in a uniform fashion. The crown guard on this new Submariner is more angled inwards towards the case, a very subtle but refined maneuver by Rolex, a very purposeful change, and this is what Rolex is known for. The movement commissioned into work under the hood of this new Submariner is the immensely capable and robust caliber 3235, an upgrade over its predecessor, the 3135. The historic 3135 movement has been in service for 3 decades, or 33 years to be exact, and has performed stupendously for submariners, datejusts, sea dwellers, and yacht masters alike. And that's a fan favorite for sure. But the caliber 3235 that succeeds it does everything its predecessor does, and a little more, offering a 70-hour power reserve, almost a 50% upgrade, and an upgraded escapement dubbed in typical Rolex fashion the Chronergy escapement, which provides 15% more efficiency. Trends, like most things, are cyclical. The trend of understated elegance, minimalist statements, and almost undercover steel watches is looking to be on its way out, especially with the pandemic coming to a foreseeable end. It seems as though people want a bit of warmth in their everyday attire and in their watches. The saying, "if you've got it, flaunt it," is personified most often these days, and a mark in trends of the 80s has been seen more prevalently since the dawn of the new decade. Cold steel watches just don't cut it anymore for some, who instead opt to have their watch and in turn themselves stand out in a crowd. As a supplementary benefit, they also don't have to endure the painfully unwarranted waiting times for steel watches. That isn't to say that this model doesn't command a waiting list. It absolutely does. Procuring one isn't as simple as going to the local dealership and just buying one. It is a lot of waiting, a lot of endurance, and more importantly, knowing what you want to buy and what you want it to say about you. The unnatural spike in steel sports watches isn't going unnoticed, or rather, isn't put up with as much as it once was, with customers instead opting to showcase a bit of grandeur on their wrist, with the inclusion of precious metals. Further, as a counteract to modernization, men and women these days long for a time where you would have to do your own tasks without relying on some sort of digital assistant. The inclusion of gold can be seen as having the human touch, the human element, instead of the cold, machine-made, batch-style vibes that a solid steel watch may get associated with. That isn't to say that this is true, but subconsciously or consciously, with many customers, this is the case. It seems a bit more natural, grandeur and all. In an era of crocodile skin Hermes bags, red and blue G-Wagons parading the streets of Europe and the Middle East, and more over-the-top fashion pieces showcased every season, the two-tone fits right in this freshly forming world, more so than a solid gold watch. With a solid gold Submariner, the dial almost merges and mixes into the bracelet due to the gold bezel and gold bracelet, and even though all gold, this lack of separation and distinction between dial and bracelet echoes back to the trends of minimal, which in most cases is anything but what a wearer of a gold watch wants to be. This is why I believe, like many, for two-tone watches, rather two-tone Rolexes, to be the perfect balance, not compromise, the perfect balance between all gold and all steel. Now, the blue dial variant of the two-tone range is a classic. However, in comparison with the black dial variant, it doesn't look as neat, as complete, and as professional. The jet black dial with its stunning ceramic bezel oozes perfect class and opulence. The black of the bezel insert looks magnificently deep in tone. The way light bounces off it is magnetic, hypnotic. It's like a vortex of black you could dive into. Every time you glance at the watch, it looks as though you've just been on a dive. This is a watch gaining momentum in demand. I definitely see it as a cult favorite in the near future. On one hand, if I had to guess who would wear this kind of two-tone watch, I'd say a celebrity like The Weeknd, especially in his music video Blinding Lights. On the other hand, a person like me, a recreational diver who would have no problem wearing a luxury dive watch, even one of two-tone on dives. In fact, the marriage of gold, steel, and deep sea are humbling and satisfying in a wholesome way. When not engaged in outdoor pursuits, I chill by the beach bar or enjoy a relaxing night at my local lounges. And I think the watch feels right at home in these places, being paired up with a crisp white shirt or a clean white t-shirt and well-fitting joggers or jeans. It isn't overpowering, yet remains eye-catching in a positive and engaging way. The watch is noticed by others most often when you want it to be noticed, and not all the time. This is what makes it an everyday watch. You can literally wear it every day of the week, whether partying, lounging, sipping on coffee at your local cafe, or even deep sea diving. Lastly, the price for this watch is 13,350 euros with a 19% VAT in Germany. I believe this is currently a fair price for the product, and I only see this watch being more in demand in the future. That isn't to say that I don't enjoy the more minimal pieces. Lately, my daily wearer is a regular Casio with a quartz movement that I find has amazing readability, great comfort. It's very lightweight and slips under a cuff just fine. I bought this watch from a local authorized dealer I usually make my purchases from, and the watch did take some months to arrive. Thank you for watching this video, and additionally thank you so much for bearing up with the amateur quality of the video and the not so perfect sound. I am using my headphones for now, but I would appreciate a subscription to the channel and a like to the video to help me know I'm on the right track with this review. So the successive videos can definitely have better equipment, better recording standards, and better editing. I do look forward to seeing you in my next video, where I will cover another recently released Rolex watch. Well, thank you for watching and have a pleasant journey ahead.